opposition Congress there because they have been saying as far as the death in Iran that has stirred a global campaign. Now the Congress party seems to be linking the situation back home in India. There has been reaction coming in. They have been drawing parallels to the protest in Iran, to the protest of the students that happened in many of those Karnataka colleges. Listen in.
The moral policing has taken its toll there. And I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned. You see what's happening in Leicestershire yesterday. There is chants of Jai Shri Ram and chants of Allahu Akbar for the match. Is this what we have exported? You people left India and went there and they are doing the same. And now here in India also the moral policing is high. In our own state, in Karnataka, which is supposed to be one of the most progressive states, you want to bring in the UP model? So where are we headed? This is something that the people at the helm of affairs should think about. This is not what the youth of the country want.
According to me, brother, whatever common man wishes, whatever citizen of any country, they wanted to lead their life. We have to leave it to them. By bringing laws, it is not going to affect, or it will not going to succeed in a longer term.
Deepak continues to be with us. Shocking reactions coming from the Congress, drawing parallels between what is happening in Iran versus what's happening in India. And women in Iran live in an Islamic country. They're saying hijab is not intrinsic to Islam, Deepak.
Well, we've seen here, even in Karnataka, while we've seen a bunch of students who protested or who even, took a transfer certificate and moved out of some educational institutions for not allowing the hijab, we've seen over 85% of the women go back to campuses and prioritize their education and say, well, for us, education is more important and not the hijab. And we've seen that happen even after the High Court ruling came in, though there is a batch of petitions that's pending in the Supreme Court. Many women, especially in colleges, did not wear it and they didn't find the need to, and even while the imposition came in that the hijab would not be allowed inside the campuses, we've seen most of them of course not have an issue with it and continue with their education. But of course there has been a
Deepak, in fact, before we carry on with the discussion, stay on with us. Let's also take a look at what the courts have said as far as the legality of the hijab ban is concerned.
Absolutely. So if we take a look at the different versions that have been said by the Indian court so far, the parallels that have been drawn is between Iran. You can see the women there belonging to an Islamic nation, how they are registering their protest when it comes to chopping off their hair and burning the hijab. And that is a strong message that is going across versus the protest that has been happening here back home in India, where the women there, especially the girl students, are hitting the streets in favor of hijab, saying and calling it as an intrinsic part of Islam. So meanwhile, there is a warning from the Muslim women in Iran that sends out a very strong message amidst the hijab debate that seems to be picking up globally. Even when it comes to Iranian women, they're taking off and they're burning hijab in protest. We're looking at multiple videos that have come across, as there is a certain morality police that actually makes sure and enforces the rules that have been set across by the Iranian dispensation. Now, Mahsa Amini's killing by the hijab cops, or they call as the morality police, have flouted the law. What is now being saying that as far as the family version is concerned, that she was perfectly fine, she was perfectly healthy when she was caught by the morality police. However, the protesters there and the family, the police's side, they have been alleging that she had a sudden heart attack. There was a sudden heart condition due to which she died. The women now hitting the streets against the hijab. Many of them are also releasing videos of them chopping their own hair in a mark of protest. And especially, Deepak, if we come back to you on that, the relevance and the kind of parallels that are being drawn. Of course, one side is criticizing, saying that this is in a way enforcing the rules, but back home, we cannot call India as an Islamic republic. It is a secular country, and that is the very norms of the constitution that will be followed up and taken up by the Supreme Court when the hearing continues.
Yes, instances like this is going to be very interesting. We'll also have to see if, the lawyers are arguing against, hijab or, to have just a uniform without any sort of religious identity, whether they use, protests like these that are stemming out of other countries in their arguments as well, because of course for them this of course could be a great ammunition to use in court. More importantly now, with this being an Islamic country, the Islamic women in that country protesting against the administration, against the the morality police there, going on to impose a particular rule, detaining a young woman, eventually that person of course dying. This has of course raised several eyebrows about imposition, and especially in countries where they are mandating that religious aspects of dressing especially should be followed so stringently, and detaining them, eventually this person dying because of it. And now this has opened the eyes of several people who are now out on the streets protesting.
Deepak, stay on with us. We also have activist Brinda Adige joining us on the broadcast. Brinda Adige, how do you look at these developments in Iran and here in India? In Iran, women are protesting against hijab, burning hijab, saying it is not intrinsic to Islam. Here in India, we see women hitting the streets for demanding their rights to wear hijab.
Both Iran and India are two different places, and we need to understand that women in Iran want to have the right to make a choice, and that choice is the regressive practice that they believe. From the age of 7, their children are asked to cover their hair, and they do not want to wear that hijab. I think we must allow that choice to the women themselves. Nobody else should thrust this kind of a rule on the woman. One woman died because she was not wearing a hijab, and that man, the men in that country claim that they are the keepers of morality and culture of the women, while they themselves are never punished under the Sharia law for either rape or domestic violence. And that just goes to show that they are not only having separate laws, even under the Sharia for men and women, but also men have the upper hand to subjugate and oppress women. That is unacceptable, which is what the women are coming out and asking. Here in India, we know women are coming out onto the streets asking to allow that
regressive practice is something that is being opposed by the women there in Iran, but simultaneously we're looking at hearings that have been happening in the Supreme Court of the country as well. But Brinda, as far as the protest that has been happening in Karnataka, because many of those people have been saying that there are political affiliations to those protests that are happening. Others are calling it is a matter of their own religion, and they should continue with the practice.
Whether it is a matter of religion or their own choice, I think we must continue to uphold the right of that woman to make the choice.
Okay, right of the woman to make the choice.
If there are political overtones to that.
All right, so you're saying it's about choice, Brinda Adige. We have Zeenat Shaukat Ali as well on the broadcast, because, when arguments are presented in the court, a very important argument that comes forth is whether hijab an intrinsic part of Islam or not. Women in Iran who live in an Islamic republic, an Islamic country, are burning hijabs against the morality police, saying it's not an intrinsic part of Islam. And you, of course, know about the developments that have taken place in Karnataka. Your views? Miss Ali, if you
hello?
Can, yes, if you can hear me, ma'am.
Hello. Yes, hello. This is just to say that, you see, whatever has happened in Iran, let me first say to this poor lady, poor girl Mahsa Amini, is absolutely condemnable and deplorable, and even the highest authorities in Iran have deplored it. Now, the second point is that, there is, ever since the Taliban has come, this moral policing has gone up, has taken an uppish turn, and any kind of entanglement in which women can get entangled and hurt is really happening, which does have to stop. And therefore, what I need to say is that hijab is a word that is used in the Holy Quran 7 times, and nowhere is it used in connection with women's clothing. It is used in connection with, a hijab means a kind of a curtain. The literal translation comes as curtain between a human being and God, between good and evil, between good people and bad people, etc. And the word that is used, for clothing is jilbab, and it is khimar. Now, in the old days, women used to wear this long gown, and they used to have a slit in front where the private parts of the woman were exposed. And when they went out, there were many times when they went to offices of nature or went to the market, they were attacked. So in Medina, it so happened that once a woman went early in the morning to fetch milk, and she was attacked physically, and there were...
Right, but that means, Sinaji, there is a problem when it comes to the interpretation of the holy book there, because we are looking at such kind of practice that is being forced upon women, not just in the Islamic nation there of Iran, that we are getting several pictures of protests there, but here are children, girl students back home who are actually wanting to wear hijab because they have been calling it as an important part of Islam.